The Renault Clio is the best-selling car in Europe. Today, we're in Paris to see the new one. But what is new? Will it be even better? And will they sell even more? And so, this is the new Clio, arriving 35 years after the first one. And since 1990, almost 17 million Clios have been sold around the world, with 1 million of them ending up in the UK. And it's so popular, in fact, that senior officials at Renault have commented that, especially in the UK, the Clio is almost a brand in itself that's as big, or perhaps even bigger, than Renault. And so there's quite a lot of pressure on this new 6th generation Clio. So what's been the approach to the design? Well, you can see it does have quite a different look from before. At the front, you've got these strong lines on the bonnet and this big new grille with a design that includes these Renault emblems on it, which on the entry-level trim are fully black. On the trim above that, you have some chrome highlights. And then on this range-topping Esprit Alpine, you can see they are a little bit blue there. There's also a new light signature for the Clio. It features black wheel arches, which on the entry-level trim have a matte finish, but on the higher ones it has this shiny finish instead. And there are 16 to 18-inch alloys available. There are 2 different designs for each of those sizes. And there are also 7 paint colours to choose from, including 2 new ones. This new red and a new green. There's a new look at the back, and it still features flush door handles, but you've now got this more kind of pinched look to the rear windows here, and a sloping roofline, which Renault says gives this a more sporty coupe style look. But does this have any impact on the headroom available in the rear seats? Well, let's take a closer look at that now. So the new 6th generation Clio is actually built on the same platform as the old car, CMFB, but it has been updated. And overall, this new car is bigger than the old Clio. We're not talking huge differences, but it is longer, it's wider, and it's taller. And the distance between the front and rear wheels is a bit longer than in the previous car. So what is the impact on rear seat space here, along with the sloping roofline? Well, let's look at legroom first. I'm 177 centimetres, sat behind my driving position, and to be honest, legroom was never really a great strength of the old Clio. The rear seats generally weren't that impressive compared to other rivals. Legroom is perhaps a little bit better, but it's not exactly palatial sitting in these rear seats here, but an adult can fit. And you've also got a decent amount of space for your feet under the seat in front of you. Now, headroom. Renault says that the sloping roofline has no impact whatsoever on the internal measurements for headroom. And to be honest, sat in the back here, it doesn't seem to be particularly worse than the old car, but it's still the case that if you're 6 foot or over, then your head will be either pressed up against the roof lining or very close to it. So clearly, if you're going to be carrying lots of tall adults around in these rear seats all the time, you're looking in the wrong class of car. But if you're going to occasionally use these or have these for children instead, then they still seem perfectly serviceable like they were in the previous car. It is a shame though that these rear windows with this new kind of pinched sloping design will probably rob you of some natural light into the back compared to the old Clio. But that is something that we'll have to test when we get this car on the road properly. And what about the boot? Well, the first thing to point out is that the actual boot release has been moved. So in the old Clio, it used to be down here on the bumper and it would get really dirty and just be difficult to use and get to. And so because of customer feedback about that, it's now been integrated into the boot itself, which is better. So access is slightly easier than before. The space itself is 391 litres, which is exactly the same size as you had in the old Clio. And that is very good news because it means that it's not just bigger than plenty of other small car rivals, but it's actually more space than you get in a VW Golf, which of course is from the class above this Clio here. Now, you don't get a height adjustable boot floor or anything fancy like that, and the sloping roofline does actually have a bit of an impact of the space available to you. But it's nothing to do with the space below the parcel shelf, which of course, as we said, is the same as before, but it just means that above the parcel shelf here, where you do have a slightly more sloping roofline, there's a little bit less space than you had before, but it's really not a big problem at all. You get 60/40 split folding rear seats, and you also have a loading lip that is 40 millimeters lower than in the old car. And to be honest, that is a very good thing, because in the previous Clio, it was quite a negative of the boot, to be honest, because it was very high. You had to haul things over it if you were putting things in or taking them out again. So it is good that it is lower for this new car, although you are still left with a fairly sizable loading lip. And yes, it's 391 litres, which is brilliant, but it's actually 309 litres if you go for a hybrid Clio. And that is the version of the car that we have here. And it just means that the overall space is not as deep as it would be in the regular petrol version of this car. And yes, that means, like before, there are two different engines to choose from. So the lineup of the new Clio starts with the TCE 115, and that is a replacement of the TCE 90 that you could get in the old 5th generation Clio. And as the name suggests, the TCE 115 does get more power. And to be honest, the extra performance should be noticeable on the road, because the official 0 to 62 mile an hour time is 2 seconds quicker than the old car. There is also an updated hybrid option available. The E-Tech 160, like the TCE 115, is more powerful than the hybrid option that it replaces in the old Clio. And to be honest, again, it should be noticeable, the difference in performance on the road, because it's 1 second quicker from 0 to 62 miles an hour. It's a hybrid setup that we've already seen in the Symbios and in the Captur as well. But more important than the performance that it offers is the fact that it emits 89 grams per kilometre of CO2, and the official fuel economy figure is expected to be around 72 miles per gallon, which is very impressive. Now, of course, in the real world, it's highly unlikely you'll actually achieve that over a long journey, but when we get this car in the UK, we will be able to do a genuine real-world fuel economy test and report our findings then. There will be no plug-in hybrid option and no fully electric Clio either, because if you want a small Renault that's fully electric, then of course you've got the Renault 5. And given the direction of travel in the industry and all the regulations that are around, it is highly likely that this generation of Clio will live its life with the two engine options that we're talking about today. Now, over the course of its history, the Clio name has spawned some very interesting hot hatch variants along the way. So are we likely to see a Clio RS for this new 6th generation model? Well, as you can imagine, no one at Renault is commenting officially about the prospect of that, but it would be very interesting. Now, we've already explained how amazingly popular the new Clio is, and this is one rare example in life where something that is very, very popular is actually also objectively very good. In fact, we named the current outgoing version of the Clio as our 2025 small car of the year. That version of the car was released in 2019 and was facelifted a few years later. And one of the strengths of that car was its interior. So what has Renault done with this new 6th generation Clio? To be honest, it's been a subtle redesign rather than a complete overhaul, but it now does look quite familiar to what you'll find inside the new Renault 5. So, for example, you've got this new steering wheel and this new gear selector up here on the steering column, which frees up some space down on the center console, if you've got an automatic version of the Clio, of course. There's some new materials around as well. So this is a range-topping Esprit Alpine version of the Clio, which gets this Alcantara on the dashboard here, but on the lower trims, this is just a fabric covering instead. There's also this fancy design that you can see at the vents there. And you have these two screens. Now, on the higher trim levels, you've got these two 10-inch screens, but on the entry-level car, this fully digital driver display is smaller and it's a 7-inch screen instead. And as with other Renault models, you get Google features built into the touchscreen infotainment system, like Google Maps and Google Assistant, but of course you still get smartphone mirroring as well. On the entry-level trim, it's wired smartphone mirroring, but as you go higher up, you will be able to get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as well. So overall in here, this looks pretty good, especially now that there are fewer and fewer small cars to compare this to. This is a good interior, but of course this is a range-topping model. We'll have to see what the lower trim levels look like before we can make a full judgment on it. And storage looks fairly decent as well. You've got these door bins down here and on the center console. Under this armrest, you've got a cubby. You've also got this new storage compartment where the gear selector would have been before, with this slightly cheap feeling cover on it as well, and a tray at the top where, if you've got it in your spec, some wireless phone charging. So all in all, pretty good up front in the new Clio. There's been no official confirmation on the pricing of the new Clio, but we have been told that it's expected to be roughly in line with what the outgoing Clio offered. Although, of course, you can expect a slight increase on that by the time that this goes on sale. You'll get 3 different trim levels, starting with entry-level Evolution, mid-spec Techno, and the range-topping version will be Esprit Alpine. And given Renault's track record in its other cars, it's likely that equipment levels will be pretty good across the board. Adaptive cruise control will come as standard, for example. And there's also a lot of safety equipment up for offer with the new Clio. And this will be freshly tested by crash safety experts Euro NCAP very soon. Now, if you like the sound of all of this, then you will need to be quite patient because the new 6th generation Clio is not arriving in the UK until 2027. But at least it will actually exist because we've seen lots of other manufacturers leave the small car class entirely, like Ford taking the Fiesta off sale, which is a real shame because good, small, affordable cars still make a lot of sense for a lot of people. And so it's great that the Renault Clio name is still sticking around for a while yet. Let's hope this new 6th generation model is as good as the old one. So that is everything we know about the new Renault Clio. Tell us what you think of the car in the comments below. Click up there to watch another video like this and make sure you subscribe to our channel while you're at it. And for more information on this car and every other car around, click on that link to go to whatcar.com.